Hello everyone, good morning. Can someone please let me know if they can hear me clearly? Just type it in the chat box. Anyone? Can someone tell me if they can hear me clearly, please? Okay, let me just start in this. Hello everyone, a very warm welcome and a good morning to all of you. Thank you for joining this webinar. I'm Diksha Nerurkar and I'm part of NASSCOM strategy group. Since last year, we've been exploring how the software testing or the quality assurance segment has been evolving and adapting to technology changes, especially AI and Gen AI. Last year, we did our first webinar in November, where we explored how Gen AI is expected to change the job roles and functions across the testing value chain. And as a result of this webinar, we also came out with a white paper that further expanded on this theme. I'll share the links to that webinar and the white paper and a few other relevant reports in the chat box. Please take a look at it. Continuing this conversation for today's session, the focus is on responsible AI, and we will deep dive on various aspects of certifying and testing AI models and the critical role that the software quality assurance community is expected to play. We have a wonderful group of experts who will share their insights with us. But before that, here are some housekeeping rules. You will be on mute for the duration of this webinar. We will have a Q&A session post the discussion. You can post your questions in the question box anytime during the webinar. And if you wish to direct these questions at any particular panelist, please mention their names as well. A recording of this webinar will be available soon, and I will share the links with you. It will be put up on our NASSCOM YouTube channel. Here's a quick introduction to the panelists. Our first panelist is Riya Matai, who currently heads the Testing Center of Excellence for Platform Foundation team at HERE Technologies. She leads teams across India, Europe, and the Americas, and has been instrumental in driving transitions and innovation, thereby enabling multiple new business opportunities for the company. She has over 18 years of experience in the tech industry with a strong focus on automation and process enhancements, and has extensive experience in running large operations, software delivery, professional services, program, portfolio, and transition management. Apart from a tech leader, she is also the presiding officer under the POSH program for HERE. She is an ambassador for programs like Earth ERG, which is to do with sustainability, strategically driving Women in Tech, which is an organizational level initiative, and mentoring live wire teams at the portfolio level. Our second panelist is Saksham Sarode, who leads digital assurance and RPA practice at NewVision Software. He has over 23 years of experience in software quality assurance with a strong expertise in automation testing and technology assurance. He has played multiple roles in testing delivery, transformation, consulting, solution architecting, technology R&D, business development, practice management, and partnership management. He is seen as a thought leader and is a frequent speaker at global conferences including Eurostar, Swiss Testing Day, Expo QA, World Test Engineering Summit, among others. And finally, moderating this session is Rohit Piparsania, Vice President of Amdocs Quality Engineering for India and Cyprus at Amdocs. With over 25 years of IT experience in the telecom and finance domains, Rohit is leading the digital transformation for telcos. He is a critical thinker and innovator, passionate about technology and its evolution, be it digital, IoT, mobile, cloud, AI, and he also has a very deep understanding of legacy systems. Off work, Rohit loves to read, is a gadget freak, and is a handyman. Riya, Saksham, Rohit, welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for making the time out for this important discussion. And Rohit, over to you.
Thank you, Diksha. Hope everybody can hear me all right.
Yes.
Hopefully they can. So first of all, a very warm welcome to the QA community out here. It's a lovely day, and we have amazing panelists here. And I think the topic is also great. I'd like to start by thanking NASSCOM for the Future of the World series, which has been, instrumental in bringing these thought-provoking sessions, as well as, thinking about how the future is and where the various communities need to align in order to be successful in these evolutionary and revolutionary technologies. And you talk about AI, there is so much of hype. Everywhere talks about AI. Everybody talks about Gen AI. What we are trying to do is we are trying to cut through the hype. We want to take some very meaningful and very practical insights into demystifying this technology which is taking the world by storm, right? And the focus is not to teach you anything. The focus is to ask some pertinent questions, try to get some very honest answers, and see if we can provide guidance and direction with our collective experience here to the audience. Okay. Again, I don't want to get so we don't want to get very much into technology. We want to stay at thought level, at a guidance level. But in case you have any questions, the chat will be here. Please post your questions on the chat, either during the conference or after. We'll try to answer all your questions. Okay. So without further delay, let's get started. First of all, see, there is so much hype about AI. We know that it's a disruptive technology, and especially with Gen AI coming in, the level of disruption, the level of acceleration in that disruption has grown multifold. Okay, whether we like it or whether we don't like it, it's going to stay. It's going to have a permanent imprint on whatever we do, technology-wise, and as individual users of this technology. So we cannot ignore it. The best way is to adapt it. Right. So first question I would like to ask is maybe to Riya. Can you just explain what responsible AI means? And then maybe further on, can you try to help us understand what responsible AI means in the context of quality assurance?
Yeah. You hear me okay, Rohit? Just a sound check?
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you, first of all, NASSCOM and everybody here, for this elite panel and great topic on discussion. So responsible AI for me, AI, everybody understands, artificial intelligence and the models around, what it means to be responsible. Very nicely said, with authority comes responsibility. So responsible AI means having an AI software or a model which is ethical, which is trustworthy, a model that has been developed, deployed, and maintained with trust, anti-biasness, fairness, transparency, explainability, right? The human approach, the human-centric designs at the heart of the AI models. Is this model legally compliant? Does it agree and obey and adhere to the regulations, local, global laws? What about data privacy, security? So it's easy to develop something, but it's hard to maintain this basics into any fundamentally model of any AI model. So responsible AI for newbies, responsible AI is innovate with responsibility. That is in a simple layman language that I can put up to.
And in context of QA, why QA is important? I mean, why are we having this discussion? Can you maybe connect it to the QA community here, please?
Yeah. So the development community will find it very easy because they develop in an output change when it comes to AI, right? You have to continuously automate what you have been monitoring manually today. The evaluation that you were doing long back now have to be user-centric, because with AI models, you have to understand that these are intelligent models. So your testing is also to be turned intelligent way what you have been doing, right? So this is something that is coming into pipeline, and a lot of upskilling that we will definitely talk about. But this is something in a nutshell, what testing or QA community has now increased responsibilities upon their shoulders.
Absolutely. So we are the guardians of, what goes to live, what the customers touch and feel. And yes, I mean, so far we've been doing this for applications. We've been doing this for, various services. But going forward, we have to extend the same level of commitment and same level of quality assurance to AI, right? Saksham, your thoughts on this question?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I think all of three are on same lines, right? There's no difference of opinion. It's just that, I'm so fascinated with this topic. As if the AI itself was not fascinating enough. Now we're talking about the responsible AI, right? And I think we're learning our lessons pretty fast. Every time I look at it, every time I read through, every time I practice during my work, it reminds me of an Urdu sher, right? With your permission, it goes like, "Gam hote hai, jahan jahanat hoti. Duniya mein har shay ki कीमत होती." Right? A rough translation is everything has a cost, especially intelligence. Right? So in this zest of making intelligent machines, right? I think this is the cost, this is the trade-off that we all have to first of all accept that this is going to be a new normal now, and AI will need to be more responsible. And I'll probably come to it during the course of discussion, because this term responsible AI as well could be a misnomer, because it's not the technology that has to be responsible. It's the humans who are using that technology who will have to be more responsible while using it. And when it comes to QA, well, I don't think we can shy away. Perfectly agree with Riya here, right? This is while the DevOps and all made quality as everyone's responsibility as a strong notion, and it still is, but we cannot shy away that we are the gatekeepers. We are the guardians. And in this case, we are now guardians of users, not only the privacy, their safety as well, to guard their own rights. So it's a huge responsibility that comes to us. And I think we should be only proud that we're playing such a vital part in this entire revolution. So that's my take.
Absolutely. Thank you for that thought. So, I mean, I look around the QE community, and it's not a generalization, but it's true for maybe most of the people out here in the QE community. See, AI testing is still not mainstream, even though there are a lot of AI models in place. You go to Netflix, you go to Amazon, you go to even your phone. AI is everywhere. But where do you think the role of QE as a professional organization versus testing of these AI models? How much of you think that penetration has happened, or is it still more of a data scientist job to create the model and then test it, or you think that some bit of penetration has happened? And in context of the people out here, where do you see that future moving towards? And just so that the QE community here can understand what future they need to prepare for, what kind of skills they need to acquire. So just your thoughts on where we are in that journey. Because let me maybe add some more color to the question. In a typical software organization, you have the dev team, you have the test team, and then you have those platform kind of approach where developers are delivering the code and testers are testing it. When it comes to AI, this whole CI/CD pipeline and all, I think there's a kind of a siloed approach. We have not got to a point where a developer or a data scientist creates a model and then it goes down the pipeline to the tester or the quality engineer to actually test it. So maybe some thoughts on where we are in this journey and where we need to be.
Okay. So specifically, Rohit, what I hear that you're talking about the organization readiness, if I can just crisp that well, I feel everybody's talking AI, that's true, and everybody wants to be first in the race, right? But we can't go alone. We have to be organizationally ready to achieve something as a milestone. First of all, AI models are good, but we have to think as an organization how much we need it. We can't just be rushing because others are rushing to gain something out of it, right? So when it comes to readiness, I think there is still a lack of defined AI ethics and frameworks, right? People understand data scientists, we have a lot of certifications, they have really gained knowledges, and with all due respect, but I think what is missing today for us to go as a mass approach is lack of the ethics and the framework that people can vouch for, fall into, read, apply today, and also the metrics, the measurements. So we understand AI, but what is the success criteria? When we are doing quality assurance, we have a lot of KPIs in front of us. Everybody is operationally doing it day in and day out, like code coverages, defect rates, defect density, performance benchmarks, load testing, stress testing, accuracy levels, and so much to do. But what are these new benchmarks or new performance criteria when it comes to assessing AI models? I think that is still missing and not clearly called out. Another factor is future proofing. You create AI models, you want to get them tested. But what about the ethical innovation? The education or the training programs or the awareness of how ethically a developer and a tester or a quality engineer both are equally responsible to ensure that this AI model is able to ethically grow up, go through various segments of its SDLC cycle. So responsible RAI cannot be met with an accident. It has to start much with a shift left approach. With the model to design, there already has to be a design factor of how responsibly this AI model would behave. What are the parameters it needs to be tested? What are the sustainable ideas? We create AI models, great. We test it, okay. For example, we have put in all the ethical and AI frameworks, ethical guidelines, but what about sustainability? What about adaptability? What if the local government or the national government come up with some laws and rules? What happens to AI models? How long are they sustainable? And what about the skill mismatch, which might also result into some job displacements and the societal adverse impacts? So, these are a lot of gamuts that I think we are yet to define, design, get them into our mindsets, and define them like a framework, like a Bible for all of us, our QE professionals, or I would say the entire IT industries to follow something on. So with a level of preparedness, I think we are still there. We still have to do a lot to go like a full force, to be ready to really absorb it and assimilate. Yeah, that's my view.
Absolutely. And Rohit, just to add on to it, right? While we speak about the organizational readiness, right, our readiness of the QA community, let us also look at the industry readiness or the technology readiness in itself. I think I'll be pretty naive to say that I'll already understand this, have figured it out. I think it is so fast evolving. It's so vast and complex by its nature, right? That no wonder that as an industry also, we're still trying to figure it out. Right? Even the art of possible is not clear. Every day there are new use cases coming up. There are new technologies, new libraries, new algorithms coming up. At this pace, right? I have no hesitation in accepting that as a QA community, we still have grounds to come. We're not there. You're bang on. Today, the testing has been predominantly being done by the dev side of it, right? By the data scientist of it. They understand this far more than anyone else does. But also, this has been the trend ever since, right? Every time a new technology comes up, that is how it works, right? It's the developer, it's the SMEs who takes care of it, takes care of insurance. Then they hit the failures. Then they realize that they need a third eye. They need a representative of the end user in the ecosystem for them to make a product which is more ready for the end user. And that's where the testing kicks in. What has happened is, so I'm saying that is very organic. What we see today is very natural progression. And I'm saying DevOps and the world of DevOps and digital is now going to shrink this cycle into probably weeks and months. We're not going to wait for a few years before we become integral part of it. It's around the corner. And that's my say on it. One another thing that makes it tricky right now, why QA would be so important, is today there is no one single solution out there. Whether it's an AI technology solution or whether testing that technology, there's no one solution. Every use case is different. Every solution is different. It is being catered to different end users, different geographies, different complications, and that warrants a custom solution. So let's not make any mistake. There are a lot of sales speeches going around, a lot of products being floating around, but even today, it's mostly a greenfield development, a custom solution, and that is what make QA even more pertinent. Because if you're going to create something from scratch, then a lot of it depends on the quality of your skills, quality of the experience you have on board. And that's where you need me far more than before, because for every custom solution that you're going to build, I have to find a customized way to test it.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. And Saksham, your point about we are at the beginning of the journey. And with Gen AI, again, the journey has kind of restarted because a lot of things are being figured out with Gen AI. It happens with any technology, first few people who learn this technology, master this technology, tend to do everything because they are the ones who understand it the best. But very soon, as we get into that mass industrialization phase, you need processes, strong processes to govern. And
Yes.
that is where the QE community comes in. That, somebody develops, another party validates. That's the importance of it. And validate not just, by, sitting there. We have this great, automation practice. We have these tools and technologies where, we have even done scriptless automation and those kind of things. Now that same thought process has to come to development of AI models. It is no different from, any other kind of coding, except that it's a bit more complicated, right? So I think very well said, both of you. And this is where I think this session is very, very important for the community out here, that how do they get into the mainstream? How do they apply what they already know into this new paradigm?
Absolutely.
I think it's all about that, right? So, Saksham, again, maybe one question to you. See, there are many ways of certifying the AI models, right?
Yeah.
Just like, there are many ways of certifying your code, right? Except that, there is an inherent difference. When you are certifying code, it's very deterministic. You give a certain input, you expect a certain output. It's very, very clear that output is not there, you fail your test case. But when it comes to AI models, it's a probabilistic, pass or fail. There are thresholds. There are, different kind of ways where you say, okay, the model is passed or not. Also, the complexity in terms of how the AI model is performing depends a lot on the training data that you have provided, right?
Absolutely.
So can you talk about, some of these challenges that, typically this QE community should be aware of and should be focusing on when they are trying to upskill on AI and how to certify those AI models?
Sure, Rohit. And like I said, I'm still a student. I'm learning it. So this is just I'm just sharing my notes, right? So first of all, you're absolutely right. Anyone who is starting afresh on this journey, especially from our QA side, right? They're gonna find it very difficult initially, simply because most of this world looks on prima facie looks counterintuitive to us. What I mean by that is, traditionally, like whatever I have been conditioned as a tester on what I should expect and what I should do, AI probably goes in absolute reverse cycle, and probably I'll explain a bit on that. Right? The typical testing life cycle, the workflow is is still the same. Right? Understand the requirement, design your test cases, execute them, report defects, report your observations. Right? But the devil is in the double click. So, for example, requirement in this case, right? A requirement for a typical AI bot or an AI solution cannot be just that one user story that you have in Jira. Because Riya in the beginning spoke about the rules, regulation, and standard that has been evolving around responsible AI across the world, right? Everyone is trying to create some guidelines and guide rails around what is responsible AI for them. Now, as a tester, every time I see a user story, my job is also about looking at the, I get the explicit requirements from Jira, but I also need to, what are the implicit requirements here? These implicit requirements will come from my understanding of the regulations which are applicable here, the compliance that I need to check for. Most importantly, the risk exposure for my end user. Because when we spoke about those 5 pillars of responsible AI, when I look at the requirement, I also should be able to look at it, not just what you're going to do, what your algorithm is going to do, but what does it mean from this 5 pillar, from ethical point of view, from bias point of view, from fairness point of view. And that's where the requirement understanding or requirement analysis phase is going to shift or change. Fundament is there, but our parameters are probably a bit more wild. Second, if we come to test design, right, and where you very rightly said, there is no expected output. There's no one expected output. In our test case template, everything has changed, right? But that one field of expected output hasn't changed, because that was testing was all about. In a more simplistic way, testing is nothing but comparing the actual versus expected behavior and deciding whether you're fine with it or not. That's it. That's what we do, right? However, the twist in the tail is AI comes and say, you know what? It may be wrong, may be right, or both. There's a probability. And that's where now tester cannot just say pass and fail. He has to apply himself his knowledge. So that's second thing. Third, that's the black box. And that's where the whole explainability notion is coming from. I don't know what to expect. The data that I'm giving today and the results that you're giving me today will change tomorrow. A same data set will fetch me different output. And it can still drift apart right? We're still not talking about the functional drift and the biases that could creep in. So that makes it very tricky. Third part is the data, right? Now, and you spoke about it briefly about it. I think we have been ignoring test data for ages now. Thanks to GDPR and other compliance that a decade back, suddenly we started taking it a bit seriously. And now here is AI, for which the data will be the critical success factor. Do we have the right representation? Do we have the right cross-section in the test data that and the data that we are using for training? And when I say cross-section, I'm not just talking about permutation combination from a business process perspective, but also ethical, social, demographic, right? These are the things that's going to make this preparation activity a bit more tricky. The fourth one will be our celebration point as a testing team. If you remember, right, the pizza parties would happen when we go live successfully, right? And I think we'll have to wait a little longer for our parties now, because when it comes to AI, if you go live successfully, that's only half job done. The important part comes with the governance, right? The monitoring aspect. That's where the drift happens. That's where this responsible AI could actually go rogue. And that these are the industry examples that we see. So my job also is now on the other side of the fence, right? And am I ready for it? That's the last question. The skills, the expertise, and most importantly, the mindset. This is where, if your question was about what are my top 5 challenges, if I had to list them down, this is what it is, right? But I think these are also opportunities. So let me also say that, right? I'm particularly very excited that we're going to probably play a far more wider and more responsible role than ever before. Yeah, Rohit, that is how I look at it.
Oh, absolutely well said, Saksham. And I remember, when Gemini added the image generation capability, all hell broke loose. Maybe because, they put their mind, they did the development, they did the quality assurance, but it went live and there were so many problems. For example, Pope was shown as a female. The founding fathers of America were shown as, people with colored skin. And that created a huge furor everywhere. From a historical accuracy point of view, the model is not right. And then I came to know that what Google was trying to do with Gemini was they wanted to correct the bias. So they added some parameters so that the bias can be corrected by the model itself. Now think about it, the complexity of, how do you test for that?
Right.
So
Absolutely.
I think these things are going to become more and more complex. And one of the things is, to deal with complexity, you need to have true understanding of what is going on, right? And as the people who are the guardians of the outcomes, these AI models provide, we have to have a deeper understanding compared to even the people who are designing and developing it. So I think there's a huge responsibility for us in that sense.
So, Rohit, just 2 things. I'm probably speaking out of turn, but just came to my mind, right? One is the example that you brought up. One very interesting example I saw when the image was uploaded, and I said, okay, can you modify this image and make it more professional for my LinkedIn profile, right? And what did is, because their training data, the professional images was from particular race. The image was changed and made to look, a bit more. So the entire race was changed, and it became an ethical issue. The second point, and I forgot to add in myself, right? The tester in me is also very happy because of these challenges. Because you know what is happening in the industry today? There's so much emphasis on automation, and we all are guilty of it, right? A functional testing with a 10 years of experience probably is not getting that respect and due that a 3 years of a Selenium expert is getting today, right? What AI and this entire movement about responsible AI is going to do is going to put the onus back on the expertise. You really need to have test design expertise. You really need to be a full and complete professional to be able to test something like this. A tool ability, a tool expert need not be a best person to test the test. So I think the functional testing, the domain-driven testing is coming back into the fashion. So I'm very happy. Yay to it.
Absolutely. I'm with you. It's more about understanding the technology, because see, if you look at ChatGPT, if you look at the Copilot, they are already generating the code. The important thing is the code right? How do we use the tools to determine if the code is doing the right thing? So that is where the emphasis is going to be, and that is where QE, continues to be a very hot field. Okay. So Riya, from your extensive experience, would you like to share some examples of maybe what I touched upon, what Saksham touched upon.
So on the question of AI models?
Yes, yes. So how
Okay.
do we certify, what kind of, some use cases and what works, what doesn't work, just to, maybe reiterate the understanding.
Okay, so while the point that you were both were talking, I felt there's one more reason to have more pizza party, Saksham, is the challenge that we have it in front of us is privacy versus transparency. When I started, I said the principal models or the ethics of a responsible AI talks about that you have to maintain the data privacy, the security. In addition to that, you also have to have the transparency. What is the understanding? What is the function? What is the model trying to implement? And you have to make it transparent for the people who are impacted by the AI model. So the developers cannot have all the knowledge and all the logics within their minds, but they have to make it transparent for the people to test it further, to maintain it, to deploy it, right? So, so the jugalbandi here is what to keep private and what to keep still transparent. So if you understand that, you're gonna have, throw a pizza party once again. So that's the expertise that one can definitely be, ahead of the game. But yeah, some of the other methods, or how do you certify this AI models? I think before even I go to methods, Rohit and Saksham, I would say the first and most important thing for me is a changed mindset. An innovative mindset, unless and until an individual, no matter what role and years of experience you have, unless and until you are able to critically think, design think, these soft skills of design thinking, out of the box thinking, critical thinking, needs a change mindset. A same tester with the same laptop, with the same job of testing, validating, now sits on an AI model and wanted to do something on testing. I'm sure the very first is going to be special for every QA professional here. Right? And you are going to ask yourself, how did you end your day? What did you do differently when you were testing an AI model as compared to the primitive models of, development pieces? So I think the other challenges that, like I said, we have lack of frameworks and ethics, but somewhere we have to start. But we can definitely start with our basics, what we know, what we hold expertise on is rigorous testing, stress testing. Let's simulate and do a simulation testing. Let's try to have model validation with respect to what you understand about the logic. Is there a documentation available? Not available? Throw it back to the developers. Ask for the ethics. Ask for the documentation. Ask for the effectiveness of the algorithm. Because like you said, it's not the same data output that the model will throw each time. In fact, the AI models are expected to drain if the data distribution changes completely, which is the main ethics of the data scientist. How far the data has been disseminated, how far the data is functioning correctly, what is that you can learn out of the data, make a causal analysis of, basis the data facts, right? Is the same false negatives and false positives behaving similar, different across the demographics? What is the resilient testing? So I think these are some of the basics that you can still go and vouch. Tomorrow, you don't have to sit with a big certification and you cannot start working because you are not certified on an AI model. No, it's not like that. I think the basics are not changing. You just have to build on basics, gain that more professionalism, or fine-tune your approach of what an AI model further demands. And it's a learning mechanism. It's a continuous learning and continuous monitoring, which nobody can steal from you. If you have that knowledge, you are still the right and the best and the confident person on the system to test it. So I think I am there with you, Saksham, when we say that I'm very proud with this change in the industry, where it's gonna, make our collars really tight and say, yes, we are the ones who are developing, not just developing, but testing something who has developed. And right here, have all the charge to challenge people who can not just throw the AI models because they are developed. We can challenge and throw them back, be real quality gates, and have go-no-go decisions when it comes to delivering the AI models. So we have the control, guys. Cheer up.
Yeah. So Saksham, I'd like to ask, maybe, I mean, there are a lot of questions in the chat where people are asking, what kind of skills, what kind of courses they can take. We talked about, it's the outcome is not, exact, right? It's probabilistic. So it's a very difficult to, understand, what is right, what is wrong, what to certify, what not to certify. So can you maybe, put this all together in terms of a very real life example? For example, I don't know, I mean, I can give one example. you are in a bank, and I am a person who needs a loan. I go to the bank, and then maybe take that example that how that this whole thing works, and where the QA community can come in and help make sure that whatever that AI is, which is saying give the loan or not give the loan, should function. Maybe putting it all together with a practical example.
Sure. Rohit, so let us take that example first, right? And let me also think out loud with you on how I would have tested that use case, right? If I'm working on a system that's going to make a recommendation on loan approval for a particular applicant or not. So as a tester, I always look at from a three lenses: strategy, approach, and technique, right? And while Riya said everything that we have learned from past few decades in QA is still relevant, right? We just need to take those as a foundation and build on top of it. I believe my strategy, number one, should be risk-based strategy. If I'm going to look at this use case and decide on what QA strategy, what test strategy I need, I'm going to first look at what is the risk exposure here, what I'm going to lose, what happens when the bot gives an incorrect recommendation for loan approvals. And there are actual cases happened, right? The biggest trigger for this entire responsible AI came from few incidents that happened. And one of the incidents when we saw in US, the loans being rejected for a particular race by a bot. And then they found out that it is because of the years of data they had. The bots saw a pattern and decided that a particular race will not be approved loans, even if they have all the credentials, right? So as a QA, my first job, again, the second notion is, if you look at how all the standards and regulation for responsible AI are coming up in the globally, whether it's Europe, Canada, America, Australia, China, India, right? You would see they're all start with, first of all, categorizing the risk. They are breaking down AI into what is the risk that you're causing, risk that you're approaching, and then they align all their frameworks, regulation, compliance to that category of risk. So I think our strategy should mirror this. My first question in this would be, what is the risk? What is the cost of failure? What I'm going to lose? And then choose how rigorous I want to go. What is the test coverage, test depth, to what level I want to go. That's number one. Number two, approach. I'm a strong proponent of looking at AI as two key components, right? When you say AI solution, it's data and model, right? At the end of the day, this is what it's all about. And then it makes me think, and it's also now I'm stating the obvious because industry is saying it for a few years, that data is at the heart of AI. And if that is the case, my argument is, yes, AI testing is new, but data testing is not. Data testing has been around for a while. We have been testing ETL, data warehousing, data migration, with the adoption of cloud, even more so. We know how to test enormous amount of data with numerous complex permission combination, data integration, data quality frameworks have been already established in a data testing realm. And that is why my approach that I recommend for testing AI system is a data-driven testing approach. It had to be driven by testing. And that is why it has to be driven by test data. And third, the technique part of it, I would say, rather than looking for why a particular bot is really working fine, I'm going to look at why it doesn't work, or find out the cases where it is going to fail. My testing will be now more adversarial. That is the term that is being used, adversarial testing, in which I found the scenarios wherein even with having the right credentials, your bot will still reject the loan for them. Right. So when I build a bot, I'm going to look at what are the features have you considered for your bot. I'm going to take it from our developer and data scientist. And for every feature, I'm going to say, okay, what are the combinations in the race, demography, social strata, financial strata, gender, all those things that's going to create ethical issues, transparency issues, bias issues. And then I'm going to make permutation combination of every feature to build my test design. So in this case, what I will do is I'll create the entire loan applicant sheet same, process it through your bot, see what the results are. Then I'm going to do it again, but this time I will just flip the gender for every applicant. I'll do it for 100% male, 100% female, and the bot I expect should give me the equal or similar results simply because the rest, all the information is same. And that way I can easily find out how's the bias. Is there a bias in the model, right? So that way, I think, and again, when I said adversarial testing, I'm a big advocate, and this is again nothing new. A term might be new, right? Because it's coming from the airline, but we have been doing for years now. We were ethically hacking it when we were doing secure testing. As a tester, I used to take pride when I find an application in which the application will completely get hanged and I have to restart the computer. That used to be the badge of honor for me. And I used to do crazy things. Well, welcome to the club. Now you are licensed to do it. Okay, so I hope I have answered your question. If you're, just to summarize, if your use case is about testing a bot that approves a loan or rejects it, then I'm going to look at it from a strategy, approach, and technique part. The risk-based strategy, data-driven testing as an approach, and adversibility as my technique, so that I find defects early. That is how I would look at it, Rohit.
Very well put, Saksham. I think you've answered my question. I just want to add a few more things to what you said, because, like you said, we are thinking out loud. Nobody has that, that crystal ball to, predict, how it's going to be tested in the future. We are all, trying to build that strategy as we speak, experts across the world for Gen AI as well as for, traditional AI. So what you said about data-driven testing, I think that's a very, very, very important point. The devil lies in the detail. In this case, the detail is the data. Your model, those libraries, the AI models, there are, numerous libraries. It has become very, very easy to apply that, that model, that algorithm to the data. The difference is the data. The key difference is the data. And I think we all have to understand that. And like you said, data validation tools, data validation techniques, there are a lot of things available in the market which we have been using. With one difference, though, which I want to highlight here, the data validation has been from a point of view of, data integrity, and data, consistency, those kind of lenses we had applied. But now what we have to upgrade ourselves to is getting the insights as well. So just, the consistency and the integrity is not going to help us. And because, we are going to deal with more and more unstructured data, right, which is coming from social media platform, which is coming from various records. And, when we talk about Gen AI, it is coming from any and every source. Where we have to kind of, expand our thinking is what insight the data is giving. When you put, for example, in the gender example you gave, or the race example you gave, right, maybe, the race was mentioned, right? We do fill a lot of forms where, your nationality, your race is being asked, right? And that data is there. Maybe that data is, skewing your outcome. But at the same time, it could be much more complex than that as well. Suppose you eliminate that race data completely. Still, you might see that there is a bias coming in. Why? It's a simple example. Maybe the AI has lots and lots of data where in a particular PIN code, there is a lot of, non-performing assets, right? And that PIN code has non-performing asset because maybe it is dominated by a certain minority. Right. So this is where we have to understand our data very well. We have to understand how that model works, how AI thinks. It's just a piece of code. It's, automation of your judgment or decision making, right? So we do have to understand. And where, now coming to that question that I'm seeing here, how do I prepare for this? How do I understand all this? My suggestion would be, if you want to start on this journey, take a data science course. Data science is mainly about data preparation. And as we have been discussing and kind of agreeing upon, the main culprit in this bias is the data. So once you understand data, once you understand the tool to analyze, slice and dice the data, I think, that's where you can also understand the problems with the data and then the resulting problem with the AI model itself, right?
Okay. I would like to add here, Rohit.
Please, yeah.
I think with the data science skills that you said, because these skills would help an individual to know what it means by data cleaning, data normalization, and, exploratory data analysis, which is the need of an hour, right? And when it comes to further, segregate the technical requirements, one needs to know programming and scripting as well. Python and R are some of the languages that an individual should now be well versed at. and it was the basic course that we started, 20 years back or even before. So I think, and people thought, let's go ahead and do low code to no code and forget all the programming languages, but it's not true. As I said, stick to the basics. They are going to help you even in the longest run of your career. And the statistical analysis is also not going away anywhere. So these were first the criteria that anybody in the finance or business would go for such certifications. But I think now it's the role of a developer as well as a QE to understand these skill sets, understanding the AI/ML concepts, without which you will not be able to test them. You are just not a quality engineer. You are a go-no-go decision maker, hold that authority, and the DevOps concepts also. So DevOps is not just now a developer's cup of tea, but also a tester who has to now think of how can you have AI ops or machine learning ops, where you put in the code, where the models are into the CI/CD pipeline. So I think these are some of the technical skills that one should be exposed to.
Yeah, and I think we're fortunate that we were pretty, like I said, we learned our lesson and we're responding pretty quickly as a community. So today, there are already certifications that are available for AI testing. There are courses that come for AI testing. When we are recommending for you to understand data science, we are not asking you to be an expert in it. You don't have to, right? But like they say, have the mechanical empathy, understand what is the proposition of a technology, what it does, what it can't, right? Even that empathy is enough. And then you can apply your fundamentals to it. Go for a simple certification, not just because that certification really, gonna prove anything, but that preparation, right? Your study, your reading, your references for that will prepare you with the mindset and skills.
Yeah, very well said. And Riya, I was particularly happy when you said QE, quality engineer. See,
yes,
it used to be that, testing community was thought of as, manual testers, working in Excel sheet. There is a column which says, give this input and do this action, click this button and see that output. I think we have evolved from that a lot. I see in my team. And again, incidentally, we at Amdocs, we used to call ourselves testing services. And then we renamed ourselves as Amdocs Quality Engineering, just to recognize the fact that, we are no longer testers. We are engineers, and we have come through, so much of training. And what engineering college gives you is that analytical mindset, that technology mindset, right? And it's very, very important that we consider it important that, we have to evolve ourselves from a technology perspective, learn those skills, Riya, like you said, Python and R and all those things, and, continue to evolve in that journey. We cannot, sit back and say that, okay, somebody will give us some tool and then, I will only be the user of that tool. Because this field is evolving, you need to think about how can you take the lead and create those tools of the future, right? And for that, you have to arm yourself with those engineering skills, those even programming skills, because QA is not about, not programming at all these days, right? Even when you use low code, no code, there is somebody who's creating the framework so that low code, no code is possible, right? So I think it's a very good, thought. Let's change the gears a little bit, okay? See, so far we've been talking about how, as a quality professional, we are supposed to test the various, models there, and that, people are giving us to test. Now let's change the gear a little bit. Obviously, we are testing what others are providing. There are many providers out there. I mean, the most, famous one, of course, is ChatGPT. And even, when you talk about Amazon, when you talk about Netflix, they are continuously pushing their models to you as a user, right? What is your expectation? A, as a consumer, B, as a professional who are using these models to incorporate in your applications. What are your expectations? What they should be doing to make our life easier? Maybe in terms of, giving us tools and technologies so that we can, do justice to whatever we are doing. And B, as a consumer as well. I mean, are they doing enough to make sure that the models, their outcomes are unbiased? Any thoughts on that? I mean, you guys can share.
Okay, as a
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. So for me, first and foremost, and to stating the obvious, be responsible, right? If you're building an AI solution, most important that you understand and accept that you are responsible for a larger good or larger harm that you can cause to the societies. I think easier said than done, but we all need to understand that, and it goes both for providers and the consumers, right? Number one. Number two, while this regulation and act are getting more complex, more fast-paced, right, more comprehensive in nature, I often think about it and get amused how the three laws of robotics that were written as fictions are so relevant today. So I try to simplify, as a tester, that's my job. I try to simplify things, right? So I would say just stick to those three laws of robotics. Do no harm. When you're building an AI-based solution, make sure that you ingrain that it should never do any harm, right? Second, obey orders. Third, whenever in a conflict, put human first. That's it, right? That would be the most simplistic, condensed view of what is this all responsible AI would mean. And my ask, my request, my expectation from provider is to stick to them, right? Fourth, I understand this is just about automation, right? Life cycle automation, zero touch automation, right? But I'm saying that till the time we are very sure, let's stick to the human intervention in your workflows, right? Have a place where users can intervene. Have a place where user can decide how much automation they really want, right? How much intelligence do they want? Let me decide on my for myself on whether I really want you to make that decision on my behalf, right? Every website that I go to these days there are chatbots, but I see very few organizations actually making explicitly clear that I'm interacting with a chatbot and not a call center operator out there. This is what the transparency notion meant, and I would my request from the providers would also be this, and be transparent on what you're using, how you're using it. So that would be my take on, especially on the providers. Riya, sorry, I cut you short. Please go ahead.
For the providers, like you answered, if I can answer on the ask from customers, right? What would you ask from the customers when for these AI models that are coming up? I think we need to ask our customers, which is a standard, what is the clear objectives and requirements? You know, we were asking this question also for all our use cases, but when it comes to AI model, like I said, why, to what extent, and how do we leverage this AI, artificial intelligence, in the models? What is the purpose? What is that it is being designed for, right? The right use cases, and what are the ethical guidelines, you know? And with the use cases defined, we also need to have a right access to all the data. Gone those days where only developers would have an access to the GitHubs and the libraries and codes, and the testers were only expected to test A versus B and output, and that's it, submit the test reports. No, we have to have full comprehensive data sets, which represents the real data representations, the real world data representations, because we have to now test this softwares not just for the tested data, but also to see if this models are working well for the real synthetic data generation also. So synthetic data representation also, right? What are the compliance standards that this model is supposed to comply for, right? Having said that, like you said, you know, very few models or chatbots would define that you are interacting with a chatbot and not with any human in the loop. I think there also have to be some audits. Audits play a very important role. We had this also in the past, but I think now with this gear of generating so many AI models and so much of development, there is a technical depth that we have to clear as QEs. Right? We also have to double the speed or triple the speed of clearing this technical depth so that we are able to truly deploy them with all the ethical skill sets to be able to deploy and release these deliverables for the customer. So the customer also have to be now partnered with us when it comes to, you know, the audit trails for the decision making, to be able to rightly trace the requirements till the output, right? Putting up those performance benchmarks, and of course, robust testing. What I also see lacking, and we have to work and clearly define, is the responsibility and accountability part of it, right? Who would be responsible and accountable for a true behavior of the AI model from the development till the end execution, till its maintenance, right? Whom should we really ask for? Where should a human or a user go and give its feedback? Right? This is a customer sustained organization, or customer satisfaction scores have to be denoted. But what is that you fill up a feedback form and then it's lost? No, the feedback has to be considered and put it in the feedback loop, because it's speed to market all about that we are talking to, right? If we have to be ahead on the game, we have to have this all parameters really tightly coupled, talking to each other in this microservices architecture or development that we are today placed in. So I think these are some of my thoughts when it comes to ask from the customers, Rohit and Saksham.
I have, if I were, if I were to ask this question to myself, I had, just one point in my wish list. I want explainability to be built in.
Yeah.
And I'll explain what I mean by that. So in the loan approval example, for instance, I apply for a loan. If the loan is rejected, as a user, as a consumer, I have a right to know why. And that has to be built in. Every AI provider, every organization which is, employing these AI models, have a responsibility to build that explainability that, even for the QE community, if I am testing an AI model, I am giving some inputs, I am getting certain output. In order to understand that output better, I need to understand how this AI model is thinking, how it is arriving to that conclusion. And that would be my, traceability, or that would be my, way, or to basically figure out what is wrong in the thinking of that AI model. Is it thinking like an biased human or an unbiased human? Because that is essentially what we are trying to do. We are trying to replicate human thinking here. And that would be my, data point to understand and analyze it further. So my ask is simple: explainability should be built in.
So, and Rohit, if I can just argument your point, that's a great point. And I think from a testing side, what I need to do is just speak to my developer friend, because they already are using tools like Sharp and Line for the explanatory part of it. It is just that they are not exposed to my part of world yet. And if I can also understand how this tool works, has been the report from the unit testing perspective, actually I can use them to make my test coverage and test depth go a bit more wider to maximize that test depth, right? So there are already precedents. Okay, we just need to make sure that we integrate it with our overall QA strategy and pipelines.
Yeah. And somebody very rightly put a comment here that there are a lot of legal and compliance concerns around providing explainability.
Yeah.
Because the data is sensitive, data is confidential, and so on. Very rightly put. The question is not about, the ask is not about making, this information available to all, but that feature has to be there so that even today, that confidential data based on your level of, security clearance, and then there are so many things. You get access to certain data, you don't get access to certain data. We are not saying that we need to bypass this and make it all transparent, right? What we are saying is that it should be built in the sense that whoever has the right clearance should be able to audit that data, the outcome of that data in a very easy to review manner, because this is so complex. And with more and more advancement, like in ChatGPT, the cognitive gap between what a single human can comprehend versus what the machines can, that cognitive gap has been increasing. It is impossible for a human to process all that information and make the decision that where the computer is going wrong. So these, I think, tools is something that can help us, keeping all the regulations in mind, of course.
And this goes back to also what Riya said earlier, right? When she spoke about this trade-off between privacy and transparency, right? That's the balance that we need to strike. Even here, the explainability versus the risk of jailbreak, right?
Yeah.
Has to be strike balance and difficult choices, right? Difficult choices. There's no one right answer, but that's the challenge that we have in front of us. I agree with you, Rohit.
Yeah, great. So let me go a little bit into the future here. What do you think the trends are in the AI journey? How, and especially with in context of the QA community. So maybe you can help us understand where the whole AI paradigm is moving towards, and at the same time how we need to continuously align itself to this evolving paradigm, so that we can stay relevant. And there is a lot of fear in the market that everything is getting automated, right? Because of AI and because of Gen AI. What would be the relevance of humans, if all the jobs are taken away by AI? So can you please, comment on that? What do you think? Any of you can take that question.
Yeah, I'll take a first stab at it. First of all, what do I think would happen in 2-3 years? I don't have a clue what's going to happen in 2-3 months' time. The things are so crazy, right? I think even AI will not be able to predict the AI's future. It's so rapid, and it's not even a joke. It's a reality, right? Look at how fast, how rapidly the new startups, the new open source Ankies are putting their solutions on the communities, and how fast they are getting adopted. I don't have the guts to predict that future, right? Honestly, but looking at what I see, right, where it is heading to, right, my gut feel is from, and again, just from purely from a testing side. Uh, by the way, just yesterday when we were conversing, if you remember, Rohit, right, I spoke to you about this very interesting conversation I had last week in Stockholm, right? When a gentleman met me and saying that he is spinning a startup that's gonna digitalize the test workforce. That's gonna give you a digitalized test manager, QE, QA, solution architects who can write test designs and all that, right? So who knows, right? The future looks very, very exciting. I'm not insecure. I'm just very excited because I know with every technology advancement, I'm gonna be more and more relevant, right? Contrary to the popular belief, right? All of this is gonna make me, my human intelligence, my creativity, my imagination, all the more relevant. But coming back to your question, I think a couple of things I definitely would think that it will evolve for better, and also silently praying that they will. Is one is the tooling, right, from QA side. Today, what we lack is a standard, commercial, comprehensive, meaningful tooling for AI testing. There are a lot of open source libraries, like you said, numerous of them. They're already being engaged. A lot of open source tools, but I would say, as far as our commercial partners are concerned, our technology vendors are concerned, they have adopted AI in a AI for QA space, not so much in QA for AI space. That is still a blank space for me. And I think the next few years would probably see us looking at least some of the options available. The second part is, and the extension of the same argument. I look at the entire AI QA intersection, like I said, QA for AI, AI for QA. What will be interesting is if we start using AI for testing AI. I haven't seen that in a great deal. I've seen few ideas, I have seen few use case and custom solution, but I think there will be times when we're gonna be using intelligence, the artificial intelligence, for making our test suite, test cases, our test coverage far better and stronger. The third part is, like I was saying, the adversarial testing. That's a stream which I think would become mainstream, right? There will be far more exploration from some common practices, guidelines, standards that will come up on how do we make sure that in our test environment, we try every option to make the bot go rogue. Whether it's a RPA bot, whether it's an AI bot, whether it's a chat bot. I think testing teams will have more skills and awareness on the adversarial testing aspect of it. And those are my top bets, Rohit, as far as the future is concerned.
Okay, great. Riya, your thoughts?
I think for the future in the upcoming years, what I learned from the market stats is, Rohit, the AI governance market was valued at $50 million in 2020 and is now expected to rise by more than $1K million by 2026, with an average growth rate of 65.5%. Right? With this kind of a market, with this kind of a segment that we are already part of, first of all, cheers that we are into the right place ever since the right time. I think with AI, ethical AI coming into place, there will be a lot of standard frameworks, training programs, certified training programs that are going to come up. And like I also earlier said, the new skill sets and the new learning mechanisms of how do you integrate the continuous testing in DevOps, right? What I said, the new parameters of new QE skill sets would be putting in AI ops and ML ops into the DevOps pipeline. Like Saksham said, AI in AI, and we do not have a lot of examples, but there will be organizations who will come up with AI models, the test models, who will now validate the AI models that have been developed, if these are ethical or not. Right? Standardization of frameworks, of course. There would be also priority algorithms that would tell a tester what needs to be tested first. With the depth of so much to test, what needs to test first, the human in the loop will always be there. We have to come up with solutions which would augment humanity. Because I think the generation or this artificial intelligence has come up to empower mankind, not to deprive any, of power that the human today have. We are not here to again become slaves of the technology. right? We are here to again empower ourselves, and AI has to work the basis we want it to work, right? So we have to make these models such that they tell us how to predict the defects. They auto predict the defects. They auto generate the reports, right? There are some self-healing test scripts who would just go and adapt the changes in the application if there are some tweaks or small defect leakages, which today we do a lot of manual effort, right? There would be automated dashboards. So I think a lot of it could get automated and will get automated, no doubts in those. But I think, again, the human or the humanity or people in the loop are not going anywhere. So there is nothing to be scared about. It's about going a step ahead to understand how the machine is behaving, what it is supposed to do. There will be stages where the machine will stop and will come and ask you, hey, what am I supposed to do? Because you are a human, you are my boss. I will operate basis how you direct me, how you give me that authority, you know. So I think this is the future, and we have again the power. So there is nothing to get feared of.
Yeah,
I feel it.
I completely agree with you. In the 70s, when the computers came in, or 80s, this fear was there that, they will take away their jobs. And they did.
Yeah.
They did. They did take away the jobs of those who did not learn the computer skills. I think the same thing applies here now. We need to learn those skills, adopt to this, future, because these AI models are going to proliferate. There is no doubt in that. And the level of, services they're going to provide and the level of democratization. Think about learning, for instance. Earlier, learning used to happen in classroom sessions, right? And then this whole Udemy and Coursera came in. And that was democratization of knowledge. Now, this is about ChatGPT is about democratization of AI. AI power is in everybody's hand. Every individual has access to this, right? So this is only going to go up and up. And if you look at the adoption rate, the way the adoption rate has been increasing, how do you get to 1 million users? ChatGPT took just a few days compared to Netflix, which took maybe a year to get to 1 million.
Yeah.
So that rate is also accelerating. So this is a force which can't be stopped. I think better to swim in the direction of the current instead of against it, and adopt it, learn it, right? And that would be my advice to everyone out here. And on that note, before we move to the questions, as we are moving towards the end of this webinar, I'd like to ask both of you, Riya and Saksham, what is your one word of advice or one line of advice to the community out here?
Right, I think I have done too much preaching from Friday morning already.
Okay.
But my only, and this is not an advice, this is what I remind myself, that stay curious, right? That's the mantra. A lot of things are going to change, and what Riya just said, just want to argument, right? There has never been a more exciting time to live like today, right? We are living in a most this used to be a fantasy world, our fantasy world few decades back. We are here, right? So congratulations, just stay curious, that's all.
Mm-hmm. Riya, one word from your side?
I would say be ethically agile. These are my 2 words. But yes, agile, but ethically agile. RAI isn't a destination. It's a continuous loop.
Yeah. Great thoughts. With that, I think we should move to the questions. So some of these questions, we have answered as we are going through. So one of the questions is, what controls are in place for Gen AI for it to be transparent in terms of information security?
No, I think for a Gen AI, the traditional part of it, right? Those controls are still there, still valid. But to be honest, from a testing side, I don't think the Gen AI has been warmed up for me as a QA professional yet. I won't claim any expertise as a QA representative here. But I think this is where we as a community need more time to dig into it and be comfortable with it.
Yeah.
And
I agree with you. There is a lot of research happening on how do we go from 75 billion parameters to 175 billion parameters to building that artificial general intelligence. But there has been very little discussion, and we are talking about Gen AI here, in terms of what those guardrails are to contain the output of that Gen AI. We are adding more and more data, and we are not able to build those guardrails into the system to make sure that the output is regulated. It is, correct, historically correct. It is also, socially correct and morally correct. I think those guardrails are still, there are a lot of organizations who are working on, but I don't think anybody is close to that.
Yeah.
Right. So it is still an evolving, area, Amrish. And let's see, how things evolve. Riya, you wanted to add something to this?
I think for the Gen AI, like Saksham said, we also have to experiment more and more to really preach this and advise this to somebody. But I think there are certainly the metrics like fairness metric, the feature metrics. If your AI model is implementing a lot of features, you have to now compare how did the model or how was the model able to predict, and which features did it use to predict that and come to a conclusion. So you can see how important, or which features were really important out of the features that the model was refurbished with. There could be also robustness metrics, to assess if your model is accurate and how precisely it is giving that output. There could be also traceability score. Like I said, we've learned about traceability since our basics, right? So you can decide now the formula for the traceability will change. For example, you would say, what are the total number of decisions that the model took upon the number of decisions that were documented in the entire AI model. What are some of the user satisfaction scores? How would you manage the trade-offs between accuracy and fairness? How do you want your model to be really fine accurate, or you want your model to be fair to the data, to the different data sets? So it completely depends upon the model intention, who's implementing it. But one message, because of the forum that we are in, ensure that this is responsible and ethical enough.
So I have another take on Amrish's question, because his question is more about information security. So another angle to it. See, I was in a conference some time back. In that conference, there was a doctor. Okay. The doctor was concerned that there is a patient who put his symptoms on ChatGPT and diagnosed himself with cancer. Okay. That was way earlier compared to the doctor's diagnosis. Now the question of information security comes in here, and I hope that's what you mean, Amrish, by your question. That this person, there are so many regulations about medical data privacy, HIPAA, and so many regulations. But this person has put all his information, I don't know to what extent, into ChatGPT. What happens with that information? Where does it go? People are freely putting information into these, public LLMs, and they are not aware, what is the implication of their data going somewhere. So again, I think there is a lot of power in the hands of these providers, and we don't know, to be honest, how that kind of information be secured. But it is very important, and that kind of goes on to the second question, where people are saying how Gen AI can be used for delivery, so making sure data security and NDA and so on, right? So we have to be careful what information we put into these public LLMs. We as individuals, about our own personal information, and secondly, especially when we are putting any customer information. I would strongly advise, and people have done this, not to take your code, customer-owned code, because the customer has the IPR on that code. You cannot take that code and put it into the public version of ChatGPT and ask, okay, can you debug this code, or can you suggest improve this code, right? You cannot do that, because the moment you do that, it goes into the public memory, right? And unless you have this authorization from the customer. What people are doing these days is they are creating their custom not versions, but implementations at a company level. So for example, at Amdocs, we have taken the OpenAI license. We have created a very isolated version of ChatGPT. All the data that we feed into this version stays within Amdocs boundary. That way, you can ensure that the data is not leaking and becoming part of the public version, right? So those controls are in place. It is possible to do that, but those are very, very expensive to implement. In the meantime, as an individual, I would advise you that yes, these are great technologies to be leveraged upon, but be conscious, be careful when you are giving your customer information or too much of your individual information, right? But in terms of, the promise of Gen AI, the promise of Gen AI is definitely there. And Saksham, Riya, please, comment if you'd like to add. I see Gen AI or AI as another level of automation. We've been doing test automation since ages. Now this has given us an opportunity to create even more automation. We don't have to, write those scripts or even have to generate those scripts. We can just say, okay, here is the requirement. Create test cases. First, you create test cases and then automate it as well, right? Because Gen AI also knows how to code. So it is another level of automation that we can get to. Okay, I'm just scrolling through a few more questions we can take. And Diksha, please let us know when we need to stop.
Yeah, the teacher is in the classroom.
Yeah. So any specific courses which are useful for QA? I think people suggested a lot. Riya talked about taking, some programming languages like Python or R. And I suggested, take a data science course so that you get a, holistic understanding of what data science and AI is all about. And then you can figure out how do you apply your QE processes or quality processes to data, right? And Saksham talked about data-driven approach. How do you basically do data validation faster? How you are familiar with those tools which can help you slice and dice data and clean up data and give you better models.
Rohit, there's a certification available for AI testing now. I think that would be a great starting point because we know testing. It makes a nice transition from testing towards the QE required for AI part.
Perfect. If you can maybe share the link here, it will be beneficial to the people here. Okay. With Copilot generating test cases, is it possible to use Copilot for generating test cases to test model? It is very much possible. In fact, a lot of work is already happening. There are ways where you can maybe take the requirement from tools like Jira, and with the public knowledge as well as the private knowledge that you can create from your own information. Most of the companies have worked for some of the customers for ages. For example, at Amdocs, we work in telecommunication. We have lots and lots of information, and we can keep a native version within the boundaries of Amdocs or the company to generate those test cases. Make the public model even smarter through context. There are a lot of models like retrieval augmented generation, where you can leverage the information within your enterprise and use ChatGPT as that interfacing layer. So there are a lot of techniques available where you can.
Sorry, I would like to come in here, right? Because this is also the question that I get a lot, right? And a lot of testers and automation testers, experts have tried ChatGPT or other Gen AI solutions to create test cases, to create feature files, to create Selenium code, right? And I think the observation is you really need to know what to ask, right? Your prompt to get some meaningful output. Number one. Number two, just because Gen AI is going to create a code for you doesn't mean that you can go without having your own skills. So what I've seen in my teams, right, is a Selenium expert, right, who have really done this in a traditional way for years now, is now able to use Gen AI far more effectively. Because he knows what code to ask, where to make changes, and how to adopt in its existing framework. Compared to a person who's probably not that equipped with Selenium at the first place. And then when they try to use Gen AI and thinking, okay, everything will be automatic, it actually creates more work for them. Because then they think that it's better off me scrapping it all and creating something from scratch, because the modification itself becomes daunting. So I would always caution to use it as your first base. Gen AI is great right now to augment your current skill and expertise, not as the first base to start from.
Yeah. So basically a combination of technical skill and prompt engineering. Yes. Both are required. Yes. Yeah. I think I've gone through some of the questions. Diksha, how are we doing on time?
Take one question and then close.
Yeah, that's a good question. How can AI be integrated into our current CI/CD pipeline? I think, Riya, you addressed some of it. Maybe do you want to address it again? Because I also feel the same thing. that today when we talk about AI models, there is a certain community which is creating those AI models. And yes, there are practices of AI ops and ML ops in place, but how mature are those to be integrated into our regular CI/CD pipeline that we typically do for our software?
See, like I said, it may not be completely mature today, Rohit, for us to directly go and, apply and take it as a button at the click of a button. But I think it's the future for all of us to augment ourselves with. And earlier those days, when CI/CD was not in place, it was still, gone those days when we were imagining how would a CI/CD work together, when bits of codes would be developed and put into the pipeline, tested and deployed. So I think, again, let's not forget the basics. It's AI/ML model. It's doing something which was repeatedly supposed to do by a human, right? It's nothing new or different. You are when you were manually putting a piece of code into a CI/CD pipeline for its deployment, now it's an AI model who's picked up, who's cleaned the output, who has a chunk of pieces of code, and it is again going to just stick to the same pipeline to submit the code, which is going to be deployed. So there's nothing new or a specific skill set. But yes, what I meant by AI, ML ops or AI ops is that now the operating style CI/CD pipeline has to also understand the norms of an ML submission as an output. Earlier, an individual would commit the code in a Git and then submit it for CI/CD pipelines. Now, what it means differently for a machine submitting that output. Has that been verified, validated by a human in the loop first? And then, because otherwise, you imagine there will be so many data pipelines by the machine models who are just putting up data in CI/CD. Again, there would be another model to first clean this inputs and outputs. So, it is how we want to complexify this and how we wanted to simplify to what stage. So to make it simple, it's the same model. The basics don't change. You are what you were doing. It's the machine and the model that will be again applied to the same CI/CD pipeline for a processing. So there's not a big difference to what you wish to implement. It will be just a matter of time and expertise that you learn, you experiment, you simulate what you wish to do with not LLMs, but SLMs. Let's first try with, small models and see if they're working great. Let's take baby steps when we wanted to really go towards a big bang approach of Gen AI.
Right. Yeah. So the destination is clear. We definitely want to integrate AI models into the CI/CD pipeline because we want to manage them professionally instead of they're getting proliferated without any control. Remember one time it happened with Excel sheet where everybody was creating their own application, and it was so difficult to get rid of those Excel sheets. People had created big applications inside that. So same thing applies here. So the destination is clear. The journey is still going on.
Sorry to come in. Just to quick vote on the table, right? My personal experience, Azure has helped me a great deal, right? Azure, when it comes to looking at some of the AI solutions, libraries, their orchestration with the overall ecosystem, the pipeline integration, everything. I think Azure this is not to advertise them or anyone else. I'm sure the other hyperscalers, AWS and GCP, have equally strong capabilities. But for me personally, from a learning perspective, I tried that, and that became my single window of trying out my hands at everything and see whether it works or not. So just a recommendation, right? Start from one hyperscaler. They have the right ecosystem where you can make your hand dirty, try a lot of things, how the integration would work and all that. And then once you know it, the switching to the other hyperscalers is easier as a technician.
Okay, great. There is just one question which kind of caught my attention. What are the futuristic soft skills that you see relevant for this change management? I think that's a very, very important subject, very critical, skill. Because see, what is happening is you talk about technology skills, they are getting more and more automated by this AI, right? What would, become the most important thing would be your soft skills like communication. What is prompt engineering? Prompt engineering is how do you converse effectively with these models? Communication becomes very important. How do you ask the right question? Second skill would be creativity. You have to be very creative in your, questions. See, the whole world's information is at your fingertips now. It depends on your ability to ask the right question. Be creative about it. So for example, when the AI model makes a mistake, you go out and post that you see this is the response I'm getting. Instead of that, think about it. As a user, be creative. We give the right information to the model. So because it's a tool at the end of the day, a gun in the hand of a soldier versus a gun in the hand of a robber. the whole context changes. It's the same tool. It depends on how you as a user, as an individual, as a quality professional are using that tool. So soft skills are very important, and I think that will be the most important skill which will differentiate humans from computers going forward. Okay. So on that note, Diksha, over to you for closing.
Thank you so much, Riya and Saksham. Fantastic conversation. Very, very interesting. You did share a lot of to-dos, what can be done. You also raised a lot of questions for the community to answer and address, and that in turn gives me a lot of food for thought on what next on this topic. So I want to thank all of you.
I think Diksha got disconnected.
But fine, I think we can complete this.
She's back.
We have
Diksha, keep
human
your
in the
video
loop.
off. Yeah, keep your video off maybe.
Okay, yeah, I'll do that. So sorry about.
No, I think some technical glitch or maybe network issues at her end. Rohit, why don't we go ahead and conclude this thread? It has been a great last 90 minutes for me. Thank you so much for you two, Rohit, Riya. Learned a lot today and felt so great, felt so privileged to be part of this community. All excited, all curious, looking forward. Rohit, over to you.
Yeah, no, that's all. You said everything. So I just want to thank all the participants from being being here, spending their Friday morning with us, and hope the thought continues over the weekend. I hope we have given you enough tools, enough information, and some of you, even 5-10 of you, get inspired to take some of these learnings and take a session on the weekend. Then I think our work would be done, because as part of NESCOM, as part of this industry body, our objective is to demystify these technologies and see how we can inspire the the minds here, because collectively I think we can achieve much more, and I believe that's the objective that NESCOM has. So, and thank you, Riya, thank you, Saksham. You are veterans in your organizations. You are handling very important responsibilities, and I think your learning, our collective learning, has played out well here. Thank you for all your insights and sharing your personal experiences.
I personally feel today it's not just showering in Mumbai, it's the showers of responsible AI all since morning. Thank you. Happy to be part of this Enlight panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, guys.